Open the meeting, regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Today is Thursday, July 15th, and it is 6 p.m. Who gets to take the roll?
I do.
Please.
Commissioner Adam.
Here.
Commissioner Capolongo.
Here.
Commissioner Pro. And he's already let me know he won't be here. Vice Chair Frost.
Present.
Chairman Pranzo.
Present.
Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Would you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The crowd cheers. Okay, discussion, approval, disapproval of the minutes of the regular meeting conducted on July 1st, 2021. Open up to the commission. Comments, questions?
I would like to say I made the changes that Vice Chair Frost sent to me early in the week.
Thank you.
With that, Mr. Chairman, I would offer the motion of approving the minutes from our last meeting.
I'll second.
That had to be here. So we have motion by Vice Chair Frost, second by Commissioner Capolongo. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. New business. Presentation on the review process for the Planning and Zoning Commission. Ms. Benitez.
Chairman, members of the commission, we were told at the last training that the commission would like a more in-depth presentation of the application processes that the Planning and Zoning Commission take part in. And this is the result. So first, I'd like to welcome all to this presentation. The position of Planning and Zoning Commission. These are positions that are appointed by town council. A commissioner will serve for 3 years, and you guys are an adversary body, or advisory body, not adversarial. But
hopefully not adversarial.
yeah, hopefully not adversarial. But you're an advisory body to the council, and you recommend public policies and other recommendations. This all comes from the Arizona state statute, and it states clearly what a planning commission is. If a municipality planning commission is created, the organization, number of members, the terms of the office, and the method of appointment and removal shall be as provided by local ordinance. So the town of Florence ordinance will dictate. Except that each municipality planning commission shall have at least 5 members, in which we do. Now, the powers and the duties of the commission is to formulate, create, and administer any lawful plan duly adopted by the council for the present and future growth of the municipality pertaining to the use of land and buildings for any purpose, together with all incidental activities usually associated therewith and commonly known as planning and zoning. So anything related to planning and zoning, that's where the commission comes in. And they make or cause to be made a continuous study of the best present and future use of land and buildings, and shall be put within the municipality and in cooperation with adjacent areas. And finally, you have recommended to the council revisions in plans, which in the opinion of the commission are the best interest for the town and the citizens of the town.
Let me interrupt you.
Go ahead.
What about the duties of your duties? How do they mesh with these duties?
I will cover this in the next slide.
Okay.
So bouncing off of that, we go on to the planning staff or the planning agency. Based on Arizona state statute, we are to develop and maintain a general plan, develop specific plans as may be necessary to implement the general plan, periodically review capital improvement programs, and perform other planning functions as the legislative body may provide. We also take part in contracting with other agencies, groups, state or private, for grants and financial assistance. Now, how does this affect the commission? Now, our staff responsibilities with the commission is to provide you with the necessary information to make informed decisions on plans that come forward to the commission. We report, if you have anything to report to the town manager, we facilitate that conversation. We offer advice to you as well. We also facilitate interaction between your commission and other boards and commissions within the town. We make meeting arrangements, take notes and minutes, and prepare the agenda items and call special meetings as necessary. But as you stated before, our main connection is that we receive the applications in the plans for land use, building, or changes to policy or new policy. We bring it to you for review. And from your review and recommendation, we take that and either give it back to the applicant to make changes, or we take that recommendation forward to council based on what process we're going through.
Yeah. For the purpose of this presentation, let's adjourn to a work session so that we can have an open conversation. This is a classroom environment now. And so we're in recess, I'll use that word, recess, for the purpose of this presentation.
Okay, Mari, with that, I have a question. And if you're going to cover it, you can just tell me and I'll wait. I know that one of the positions that supports this group is a council liaison.
Yes.
And there was a time in my tenure when the council liaison was here virtually every time. And I know with COVID, it's kind of got all scrambled and whatnot, but what are the responsibilities of the council liaison in interacting with us?
Certainly. If we're going to be casual, I won't address the chairman first, if that's all right.
That's fine,
Okay.
please.
The council liaison position really, it's basically a go-between. If you have certain special concerns that need to be relayed to the council, that person would be the person to do that. Generally, they're an observer. They would be somebody who would take anything that happens at a commission meeting, and if they saw a question or a flaw or something that the council needed to address, they would take it back to the council. But generally speaking, they don't participate in the meetings formally. I know in the past you've had certain liaisons that would jump right into the topic and start talking about it also, but that wasn't the original intent. Your current liaison is Councilmember Rodriguez.
Is it Rodriguez?
Yes.
Okay, I thought it was, I don't know. Oh, you're right, yeah.
Yeah, it was Vice Mayor, when he was Vice Mayor, Anderson, who filled out Councilmember Hawkins' term. But the Councilmember Rodriguez was appointed. She had been attending via Zoom while we were still even doing hybrid meetings, but now that we're full on, we hadn't heard from her regarding tonight's meeting.
So that's sometimes we get into some pretty good discussions and concerns and whatnot that, if I'm understanding correctly, the council liaison would then carry the tenor and the feeling that we've had to the council when this is brought before, when those items will be brought before the council, full council for consideration.
Correct.
Good.
Yeah.
Great. I like that.
Yeah, matter of fact, last meeting, that business property, and correct me if I'm wrong.
And make sure you were speaking into the mics a little tighter. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
The deaf person will step up to the mic. Our last meeting, for instance, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because maybe I just didn't see it, but passing that property, it's 185 by 155, and I got the math wrong. It's not 26, it's 28,000 square feet. We don't address an irregular sized property?
We do. There is a section of the code, 150.172, that talks about legal nonconforming lots. Lots that were lots of record prior to the adoption of the current code in 2006
Okay,
are still allowed to develop per the zoning. We've made some interpretations, like on the 455 South Main, the rezoning went through a couple years ago, where the barber shop is.
yeah,
That's another lot that doesn't meet the required dimensions for the B2, but it's an existing lot of record. So
Got it.
those
So-
they get a certain blessing. They still have to meet setbacks. They, still have to meet maximum heights, all those types of things. But they just have a smaller footprint to work with.
right. This would actually a much larger footprint.
Yeah, the actual lot in this case is about 130 by 155 once.
Yeah, I
ADOT
remember it.
When ADOT takes their slice out of it.
Yeah,
But that's still a significant sized lot. That's about 4/10 of an acre approximately.
yeah. I'm not going to try and do the math in my head. I blew it last time. But, okay. I didn't look at it as a non-conforming lot.
Yeah.
I just looked at it as a business lot.
Yeah.
So that's on me.
But as far as size is concerned, yeah, it'll be tight. But we've actually did have one business proposal, retail proposal, who was looking at it, and they showed us a preliminary site plan, and they made it work.
Great. Well, this one turned out to be 40% larger than the minimum we would require, so. What I was afraid of, Larry, is that it would come back. Somebody would buy it 4 or 5 years from now and want to put a building on it, and it would come back as a non-conforming building. I didn't want that to happen.
Right. Now, the way that code is written, if they wanted to put an oversized structure or something on it, they would have to go through a variance process.
Right,
And based on the requirements for a variance, it would not qualify because it would be self-imposed.
got it.
Now, actually, we've been recommending that this property owner get with the property owner, vacant lands around it, and put together a partnership and work together, because there's a significant chunk of land right there that's vacant, or, where the old mobile home park was and the old little mini storage and all of that, that's all under a single owner.
Yeah, there's a lot of room for development there.
Yeah. That's a cherry site if you could, aggregate all those properties.
And have the dollars to do it.
Mhm.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Marty.
The question, I know that you called out the Arizona state statute. Do we have a town ordinance that enacts this commission? I know we had one for HDAC.
Yes, we do. It's a chapter 6, I believe.
The town's
I'd
ordinance
have to
The
look it
town
up.
does have an ordinance,
32106.
is basically from, this information is pulled from the ordinance.
So the town did not change any stipulations unique to the town?
Related to,
The ordinance that gives us
oh,
our
okay, that
existence?
establishes boards and commissions. Yeah,
This
that's a-
particular one?
Yeah, that's a section of the code. The HDAC was actually formulated through an overlay district within the development code, so it's a little bit unique.
That's why we had a specific, okay,
Right.
thank you.
The very first slide you showed, Maricela, that was 32106, I thought.
This one? Or this one?
No,
I'm kidding. Sorry.
461, that's the state.
This is state.
What about? Is this word for word from the ordinance?
It's paraphrased, but yes.
If you actually tried to read the statute, it's
It
written,
stinks.
it's written in legalese.
Yeah.
So this is a good, solid interpretation of that, yes.
Right.
I try to leave as much in there just to, so you know what the ordinance more or less says.
First time I read that ordinance, it scared me to death. I can't do that.
The statute, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been reading them for many, many years, and I still will go back and refresh on certain topics on a regular basis.
Yeah. That one reads very poorly
Yeah,
for a layman.
for a professional.
Yeah. That's why I said it'll provoke questions.
Yeah. I'm actually putting together the work session for the council for August 9th regarding annexation. And I hadn't done an annexation in a number of years, so I'm going back and rereading the statute, and I'm more confused now than before I read it.
Yeah.
So that's going to be an entertaining evening.
Okay, so back to basics. Planned unit development.
The hot topic. Planned unit developments are intended to accommodate and promote developments with innovative design, and this mostly just involves residential and non-residential land uses. So it can be for a whole community, or maybe something not. But it's designed, some are designed as large so they can operate as their own entities. But planned unit developments only come about through development agreements and through the planned unit development application process that we have with the town. Now, these planned unit developments include different standards, such as alternative residential lot designs, innovative architecture, subdivision design features that are maybe not conventional or standard. They could be infill development, small or regular shaped parcels, or any other varying circumstance. Now, they have to be approved. An approved development plan needs to be there to assure the developer and the town that we agree on specific proposed uses, intensities, and phasings throughout the process, and that it follows the town's general plan. We want to make sure it is in line with what we want for growth.
Hang on now, let me stop you there. I'm a developer. I come swinging in the door. How do you do? I want to build a master plan community. What's the first step?
Is a pre-application meeting.
Okay, and what is a pre-application meeting?
A pre-application meeting is when the town, all the directors from each department meet with the developer to go over their proposed plan, their proposed project, and tell them what next steps they need to prepare before they start applying for anything. We also take a look at the land they're looking to develop and seeing what kind of issues they may be, whether there are not, such as utilities. Can we get water? Are we the ones who are servicing them water and sewer? Who are their other providers? We also see where that land is and tell them if the zoning allows for it, if they need to go through a rezoning process, or if they just need to go ahead and start doing preliminary plats.
Okay, so once everybody's happy with that meeting, does this go to some kind of a contract agreement between the town and the developer?
Yes, most go through a development agreement, which takes part with the town manager, usually our attorney, and then the developer themselves to
Okay.
sort out the standards.
And so the town manager has to have the approval of council before he enters into that contract?
Yes.
That's correct. And basically that development agreement covers responsibility. Who's responsible for utilities, who's responsible for infrastructure construction. It can get into the term of the PUD, how long it will last, because PUD is a zoning classification.
Yes.
And some of the things we talk about ahead of time, they have to bring in traffic impact analysis. They have to do a master drainage study for the property. They have to do all these things as part of the PUD application. But the development agreement itself gets into the responsibility of the town versus the developer as it relates to the basic infrastructure construction, utility providers. In our case, we're looking at getting water credits back for effluent, things of that nature. That's what's tied down to the development agreement itself, and that's a legal document that's negotiated. Usually, the town engineer is also involved in that for the certain nuances that go with it. It would also cover, are they going to initiate a community facilities district, a CFD? You've seen the council adjourn to a CFD meeting and whatever. The council sits as the board of directors for the CFDs.
Right.
Although the town legally by statute is not financially responsible for them. This ties the developer down to their financial responsibility. Those are the basics that are in the development agreement itself. And that sometimes will precede this PUD or it will be concurrent.
That's what I wanted to get the picture of. 'Cause it always seemed to me that the PUD should exist in some form before you get into the development agreement, because now you're talking about size of lots and things of that nature. And in real estate, if you look at real estate law, in the Arizona Revised Statute, their main purpose for the PUD is for lots that are less than the minimum that a town would require. That's their language, is strong on that side. But it always seemed to me that the PUD had to be in some form before you could even do a development agreement.
Yeah, they are usually in preliminary form. We'll see the PUD as part of the development agreement, but and it will eventually be adopted as like an exhibit or an appendix to a development agreement. That's why they're usually parallel. And so you would hear the PUD and make recommendations, since it is a zoning classification.
Right.
And that would go to council on or about the same time as a development agreement, and they would run
That's the
parallel.
other thing I wanted to know, the timing of them. Because I know we've had PUDs come to us. We've also revised or updated
Right.
PUDs. But I didn't know where the development agreement was in that mix.
Yeah.
Should I forward to the?
Yeah, you go, Joe, go ahead and jump ahead. Yeah, there's the basic flow chart. The pre-application meeting is first, and that's when we lay out the requirements that they're going to have to perform. And that's where we get into traffic impact analysis, drainage master plans, all those types of things, as well as looking at street layouts. And these are all on a preliminary basis, or what our expectations are, public safety requirements, turning radiuses for streets. I mean, we get into those level of detail currently. Now, I can't answer for what they did 10, 15 years ago
No,
on
you
these
cannot.
processes and all the PUDs that we all have inherited.
Well, I can tell you, as a matter of fact, the three of us, Amatsu Patel, the town engineer, and myself, created community development. We hired the first director because we knew we needed. We didn't have a clue what we were doing. Talk about baffled with bullshit and dazzled with footwork. The developers knew where they wanted us. We would be on step A, and they knew where we would be by step M and N. We were really babes in the woods. So
That is not at all unusual for a upstart community like, Florence would be or was.
yeah,
You've got a higher degree of sophistication on your staff now than you had before. And no offense to.
have a
Yeah,
staff.
well, but no offense to predecessors, but, so you'll see that if any new or as new ones come along or amendments to existing ones, you're going to see a greater amount of detail and sophistication in what they're going to present.
That'd be great.
Because we're trying to do the best we can to kind of make a good thing out of what was a somewhat negative situation, because basically what you alluded to was 100% correct. Developers took advantage of the town.
Yeah.
And there are some development agreements out there that are not necessarily in the best interest of the town. And we're stuck with them till they expire, or if a new owner of that PUD wants to make modifications, that opens up the development agreement, that opens up the PUD.
Can the town initiate a change?
Only if we want to end up in court. Sadly, it is a zoning classification. It'd be like if we went in the middle of Florence Gardens and pulled out one lot and decided we were going to rezone it to multifamily high-rise. You'd create a firestorm.
Yeah.
So you're just better off to hope for the best. And we have a lot of them right now. I'd say a significant percentage that are within 5 years or less of expiring. And that being the case, either somebody's going to jump on them in a hurry and try to revitalize them, or the town will have another bite at the apple.
That'd be great if we did.
So I know this is, I think, a little bit abbreviated. So are you saying that if we were to initiate a new PUD or a significant amendment, that planning and zoning would be involved in that discussion?
Yes.
Okay. And just to refer to the little bit I've been participating in, if I look at this chart where it says Planning and Zoning Commission hearing, is that what we've been doing in preliminary plats? Or is that a
Well,
PUD?
that'll be a different topic as
That's
we
a
get.
different, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're
But
just on
yes,
PUD.
and there are provisions within, I'm going to get into the weeds a little bit here. One of the things that's in a development agreement is an expiration date or a sunset clause. In other words, if it's nothing has happened that vests the property, and you'll hear that term, vesting, and you'll hear the term entitlement. Entitlement is the PUD and the development agreement. Vesting is putting significant financial money into actually developing it. And if it goes to court, there's a big difference between vesting and entitling. And you'll find that most courts will not necessarily allow a project to be vested if the developer has not invested money into the project other than just getting it entitled once.
Good.
So that's why if they expire, and if one expires, it goes back to the council basically to rescind the zoning of a PUD. That classification goes away for the property. We haven't had to do one yet, but there are some that could be coming up. The PUD itself, in most cases, have a section near the end on implementation that outlines what the difference between a major and minor amendment. And so we have to follow those. For example, a minor amendment might be they had an entitlement, they're 3,500 lots, and they want to redo their whole layout and only have 3,200. They're reducing the density. We can do that as a minor amendment. If they want to increase density, then usually it's written into those PUDs that an increase of more than 10% would be considered a major amendment, and they would have to go through an amendment process with Commission and Council. But every one is a little different. So that's not a blanket statement. That's kind of a general overview. We just have to look at each one as they come along. Some of them is just shifting of where open space is, or it might be the addition or subtraction of a school site based on input from the school district. Different things like that could be considered minor amendments. A lot of them, for example, show a school site. We don't need that many schools that are shown on these PUDs. So it's in the development agreement that the school has the right of refusal of that particular parcel within X years of the execution of the development agreement. And so if they decide they don't need it, then the developer has the right to place that usually back into residential. Those things sometimes are just minor amendments. So those happen at staff level with a letter and we're done. Major amendments you would see prior to going to council because it would be basically an amendment to a zoning.
Just a quick, with the sunset clause, is there just one sunset clause over the entire thing, or are there different sunset provisions throughout that if this isn't met by X date, then this happens?
We've got 22 PUDs. Well, we probably have, 15 different sunset clauses. Generally, it's if development has not commenced. Other ones even get into when impact fees are assessed and how much. That they have been able to negotiate tying themselves to an impact fee for so many years. If they proceed, if they don't proceed, then it graduates to the next iteration, et cetera, et cetera. Some of those actually puts the town's general fund in jeopardy because by law, a development impact fee, once established, has to be paid in full, no matter who pays it. So if the developer has negotiated his way out of it, the town is responsible for funding that development impact fee account. We're not allowing that to happen, although that's come up more than once. The plans that I've reviewed over the last, well, what, 3.5 years almost, and the PUDs, most of those, we've dodged bullets.
Okay.
That they were set up on impact fees that, there'd be certain adjustments that would be allowed. Well, luckily, those plans have not been implemented, and therefore, the developer has not taken advantage of that reduced fee, and now the current fees are all in place.
Okay.
So there's a lot of nuances, and I haven't found any two alike at this point.
Are there ways to bulletproof the town against that going forward? I mean, I understand.
Going forward, absolutely. We would not negotiate such a development agreement again. There was a point in time, now we're going into history, but from my understanding, there was a point in time that it was, encourage development at all costs.
Right.
And so the attorneys for the developers wrote the development agreements, and the town pretty much rubber stamped them. That's what I've been told. And by the looks of some of those agreements, I would have to agree with that. That's not the case now.
Truth.
Yeah, based on the direction we have now and current leadership in the town, that is not going to happen. Okay. We are trying to minimize all exposure of the town as we go through these or revise them or make amendments or do whatever, or consider doing that.
Okay.
I'd say in the last 6 months, we've looked at half a dozen old PUDs that we've been contacted on.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at reviving this, or somebody's interested in buying it from us, or those types of things. We had one yesterday that's looking at carving one up. And the company's looking at only buying 60% of it, which means they're going to have to do a PUD amendment.
Right.
And depending on the sophistication of it, it'll come back through you guys and the council. We've had a couple of those. Some of them have been minor enough that we've been able to deal with it at staff level and still protect the town.
Mm-hmm.
But the big ones are going to have to come through the process, just like a rezoning or a zoning amendment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll go back for a moment to this example. This kind of shows how we compare standards or how they are adjusted within PUDs. And it lists out the requirements in building height and land width, what's required by the town, and then what's approved in PUDs throughout the years, because they can be amended throughout the years. It's never just from the beginning. New developers sometimes have different standards and they make those adjustments. Most of the time, it does not deviate as much from the original town ordinance or requirements.
Go back to that. One of the things, for example, that we've caught that is not in the town's benefit here is side yard setbacks. They're, the ones required by code are minimum enough, to say the least, at 6 feet. But a lot of the PUDs are trying to go down to 5 feet. What we've been finding out is when you do 5 feet, you still, the way the lots are drained, they drain to the street, and it has to happen within that 5 feet. So all you need, for example, if somebody puts in a swimming pool in their backyard, they regrade the backyard, they put in a little paving path from the gate back there, it alters the drainage, and all of a sudden we're getting flooding.
Right.
So on the other side of the house, that's where they put the mechanical ground-mounted equipment for the air conditioner. Well, that uses up 3 feet. So now you only have 2 feet to get drainage through. So we've been catching those when we see them come up. Anybody looking at revitalizing or bringing back a PUD, and we let them know, you're not putting mechanical equipment in the side yard. And as we go through the discussions and negotiation, that's one of the major things that we've run up against here lately, because there's been, well, especially in Sun City, Anthem Sun City area, there's been significant flooding where people have done some landscaping, make some alterations in their yard, and it affects that side yard drainage out to the street. And it becomes a civil matter because it's private property.
Yeah.
So we're trying to avoid the civil issues when it comes to that. And that's just one in particular that shows up on, that you wouldn't even necessarily think about when you're looking at PUD stuff. So those are the types of things we're trying to catch as amendments come forward or new PUD discussions of that nature.
And just to kind of footnote on that, I asked a developer who is building homes without eaves. I thought, it just doesn't look right to me to have a home without eaves on the sides and whatnot. And he said, well, that's a requirement by the town because of fire code. We only have 5 feet, and if that eave sticks over, we're within that setback for separation for fire. And I
Yeah.
thought,
There's a
no.
fire code separation between buildings that has to be maintained too.
Right, but
Another issue.
He was blaming the town because
Of course.
the town only gave them 5 feet.
Well, that's because he was maximizing the footprint of the building, of the house on the property. Believe me, they can design houses differently. They just choose not to. They get a standard plan that they've been using in the valley for the last 15 or 20 years, and they want to modify it as little as possible, to come forward, because then they can pre-order all their trusses. And
Right.
I mean, that's a whole domino effect. And unfortunately, our hands are kind of tied because these PUDs allowed a certain amount of coverage, certain amount of building width, certain setbacks, and so that's what we're dealing with.
It's personal opinion. I just think a house without eaves just doesn't
Looks
look
funny.
right. Yeah.
And how do you get ventilation into the attic? I mean, to me, there's all kinds of issues with that.
Right, and like you were talking about earlier, you're supposed to move the water away from the building for structural, and that water's just coming and raining right down the side of the building. So,
Right.
Not good.
This is a map just to show all of the PUDs within the town jurisdiction, current jurisdiction.
Everything
So-
that's crosshatched.
Everything that's crosshatched is currently a PUD. And as Larry stated before, we have around 22 PUDs within the town.
So if you look, and Mari, you can track it with your mouse, but there's very few properties north of the river that are not in a PUD that are inside the town. I mean, there's a few up there. No, those are PUDs, the ones that are not PUDs. Like just north of, right there, for example. That's BLM land, so
Right.
the likelihood of that getting developed is pretty slim for right now, although BLM has adopted a new policy of disposing of odd parcels that are not contiguous to large tracts. So that may or may not be on the market in the next 10 to 20 years.
Well, we went through that Chinese fire drill, and what we found was that the BLM was actually auctioning property
Yeah.
in Las Vegas.
Yeah. Well, and we're in the process of trying to acquire some out there in front of Florence Gardens.
Right.
Yeah, there's a weird triangle of land between ADOT right-of-way of 79 and where Florence Gardens properties start. There's a long triangle in there that is a no man's land that nobody has permissions to have put roads over.
Nope.
Like the entry to Florence Gardens. And there's a sign that's out there, all that stuff. If the BLM wanted to, they could shut it down tomorrow. But we're trying to get that acquired maybe by the town, and then property by Post and Butte. We're actually acquiring some property out there to tie to that as an open space park.
Wow.
And we're getting that from BLM also. That one actually is, we may already have signed paperwork, but I know it's real close if we don't. And then we have right across from Merrill Ranch, immediately across on Highway right there, that's State Land Trust property.
Yeah.
That sometime will be auctioned off for what they consider highest and best use.
Now,
We
they
have-
typically zone it prior to the auction.
Typically, but not always. And sometimes they'll actually allow it to be master planned ahead of time as part of that zoning process. But they have not contacted us yet. They don't see the market at its high end yet for that particular area that we're aware of. But you can tell just from that map that everything that is not darkened in some form, either by the crosshatch or by the aerial, is not in the town yet. And that's part of the discussion that's going to happen on August 9th with the council. That's all areas that are just not in the town yet.
So is there an advantage to the town to enter into what are those, CFDs?
CFDs?
Yes.
Well, we don't enter into them. The developer initiates.
We would have to
But we
agree.
have to agree to it and become, well, what did, boy, this is going to be a long night, folks.
Well, to me,
About,
just saying,
no, you need to know this stuff.
it sounds like it's a funding mechanism for.
We are the only state in the union that does not have tax increment financing as a methodology to finance infrastructure. And that's because some years ago, when we did have it on the books, in the statutes, one of our more Tucson, I couldn't think of a polite way to get around that one. Renegade communities decided that they were going to establish a tax increment financing district, and they did it in such a way that it violated the state constitution. Somebody challenged, a piece of it did. It was challenged in court. That piece of it could have been just ignored, thrown out, and we still had tax increment financing, which is that's a long discussion I won't even get into, but it's a great financing tool for communities. Well, instead of just fixing it, they threw out the entire section of the statute. And every once in a while, somebody attempts to get it back in. Tucson did get a special election or special statute just for that area that goes from the downtown 6 miles east out to Elcon Mall.
Right.
And for tax increment financing, which, by the way, has been nothing but a mess ever since they've adopted it, because basically it's taking sales tax money, proceeds from Elcon Mall, and putting it in the downtown 6.5 miles away, and the people paying the taxes aren't getting any benefit from them, but that's a whole other story. Anyway, in its stead, Steve Betts and another attorney, land use attorney at the time, wrote the Community Facilities District statute, and basically it provides a bonding mechanism where a private developer through the municipality can bond for improvements within their development. Merrill Ranch, the streets and roads in Merrill Ranch were done through a Community Facilities District, and the Pulte Homes, or whoever currently owns Merrill Ranch, is responsible for paying off the debt service on those bonds. The town, by statute, serves as the board of directors, but also by statute, we have no financial obligations. So if Pulte were to start to default on those bonds, the people or the bonding agencies could not come back and sue the town. So we are protected from that standpoint. There are several, you have the 2 community facilities districts out there. The district engineer for a number of years was the same district engineer for the 11 that Buckeye had, happened to be my old boss. We were the kings of CFDs in the state of Arizona. We managed more of them than any other single entity in the state at that time. And so we got a pretty good handle on how they work. And because the town of Florence was smart enough to hire him to help to be the CFD engineer, designated engineer, to manage it. The ones we have out there at Merrill Ranch are very good. They're administered well. He's no longer associated with it. He retired. He's older than I am, Chairman.
Oh, that's old.
But conceivably, all these PUDs.
That is just a funding mechanism that's been made available to developers in the state. They're not mandated to do it.
Okay.
But it is to their financial advantage in the long run because they can get more development done with less front money.
Oh, I see the advantage to the developers. I don't see the advantage to the town. And I'm asking, so all these planned PUDs that we have on this map here, conceivably, they could
Conceivably.
come forward
The
wanting to
advantage to the town, though, it does facilitate development. So if we actually want development, that's one way to get there, that it's kind of an incentive for the developers to build things here on a large scale. A CFD is not economically feasible on a small scale.
I'd like to get a copy of this map.
Of which?
Did you give me a full-page copy?
I did not, but I can send you
If you would, please.
a photo of it.
Now, this is off of our website. It's available on the website. If you go to interactive maps on the home page, over on the left-hand column, and open it up, and you can turn off all of the other zoning classifications and only leave on PUD. And that's where this came from. So it's easily accessible that way. We
Okay,
can try-
that's fine then. And I can copy it or print it from there.
Yeah,
Yes.
Great.
Is there, I don't know, can we print this larger, do you think?
This?
Yeah. No, I mean just this map. We'll look into it. We'll see if we
Yeah.
can't print out something, you know, I don't know, 11 by 17 or larger. We'll check into
We
it.
probably could.
Yeah.
Is that all the questions we have on PUDs at this time before I move forward to our next application process?
That was a good basic.
I think it's good.
Take a bow. You did good.
Hope so. Because we move on to conditional use permits next. Now, conditional use permits are to allow a use that's not outright permitted in a zoning, but it could be beneficial or compatible to the uses or land in that zoning that does not outright allow it. And this process allows Planning and Zoning Commission and Council to review and approve or disapprove the application of a conditional use. It's not set in stone that it's going to be approved. The Planning and Zoning Commission can also, or the conditional use permit process allows for conditions and modifications to the application to make the use more compatible with where it's going. Otherwise, if it's listed in the conditional use section of each zone or otherwise specified in this development code, a use will need a conditional use permit if it is not specifically or outright permitted.
Can you elaborate on that last bullet? The more I read it, the more confused I get.
So only uses listed in the conditional use section go through the conditional use permit process.
In the development code,
In the development
Yeah.
code.
each zoning classification has a list of permitted uses, and then it has a list of conditional uses.
Now,
the-
that
Yeah,
cleared it up right there.
Yeah, the only exception to that is there are also provisions for interpretation. There's no way that
We
you
could
can
list all the
guess to what
uses.
all the uses might come forward. And so there is provision for interpretation by the community development director on whether something is allowed or requires a conditional use permit. And then that decision is appellate to the planning commission.
I ran across one not too long ago, did the research on it, but it never surfaced here. There was an application for a church, or was going to be an application for a church on Main Street between Ruggles and Butte. A number of people approached me and said, "We don't want this, we're taking away square footage for commerce." So I looked in the Arizona Revised Statutes, and what I found was that it said if you allow public congregation, you have to allow religious congregation. And just the other way around as well, if you allow religious congregation, you have to allow public congregation. And so I thought about it, I thought, well, now let's say we allow public congregation, we have special events. We used to have a theater till it burned down. It seems to me, even though a church is not listed as in that district, you have to allow it.
There's been a lot of discussion on that here in the last few months, and you're basically correct. The public events on the street, that's a separate issue altogether. But the fact that right now, assembly is not permitted, let's say, in the downtown, in the DC zone, the way our code is worded. And of course, church is an assembly. The flip side is we do allow a theater. So we're going to be in a position, we'll be bringing some amendments forward here in the not too distant future to try to correct some of these things. But we may be recommending that a theater is not allowed in the DC zone, because if a theater is allowed, then a church is allowed.
Yeah, that was the 8 ball I was behind.
Yes, exactly. And currently that would be the dilemma. So do we rule out a theater in the DC zone in order to avoid churches, or do we allow a theater and therefore have to allow a church? And that was the argument I heard also. Do we want to take away potential retail space in a pedestrian environment for a church that's only going to operate on the off day a week, on the non-retail day, and use up that valuable front space? This is going to be an interesting discussion when we bring it forward.
Yeah, it will be.
That's why I'm not rushing into it.
The Arizona revised statute was not ambiguous.
No, the state, actually, you're talking about federal law too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And these are some more recent court cases that happened subsequent to this code being adopted in 2006. There's so many things wrong
If you don't
with
know
this
what the hell
code.
is going on, you could really put yourself behind the 8 ball.
Yeah. Or if I was on the consultant side of this, going after the town, I could mess up all kinds of stuff here.
Yeah.
Because there are so many flaws in our code, contradictions. We're constantly finding stuff.
I think I speak for everyone that we're glad that you use your powers for good and not for evil.
And we just redid them not too long ago.
Well, we've done certain parts of it. We updated the parking code, we updated the lighting
Sign
code and the sign code. But we haven't tackled these nuances, these nuisances as we're defining them. We've got a running list of these that we're going to kind of take a look at, do the easy ones first, and then bring in the more difficult ones.
Okay.
We are starting a shopping list. But continue with conditional use permits. This is the flow chart that we have in our application currently. This helps people who are applying to see what the process is that they're going to go through when doing conditional use permit. We may have a pre-application meeting, may not. That's up to the case. We'll do a formal submittal. We'll do reviews. State requires us to do neighborhood meetings and public notices for the hearings that come through Planning and Zoning Commission and Town Council. Once we post the notices, we do take it to Planning and Zoning Commission for recommendation. Then we go to Town Council for a hearing, and then there's an approval or denial. That's just your basic process that we go through. So moving to design review, design reviews are supposed to promote consistent development throughout the town. Make sure they follow our regulations, overall goals, make sure they follow general plan, and they provide an opportunity to address preliminary level issues. So staff goes through the submittal first, and we do reviews and comments. And once that occurs and changes that are needed are made, we take it to the Planning and Zoning Commission for your guys' review and comment. And then it is approved or disapproved from there.
This is the one part of your jurisdiction that you are the final word,
Yes. This does not go to council.
unless it's appealed. If you have something comes in front of you you're not comfortable with, you want them to change certain aspects of the design, they would have the right to appeal to the council. Otherwise, you are the final word on design review.
Now
We are involved with the preliminary design review. Is that right? Oh, no, I'm thinking preliminary plat.
Yeah.
you're
Excuse
thinking
me,
preliminary.
I'm someplace else. Thank you.
Just to clarify this design review is going to be for a site plan versus a development. Correct?
Generally, yes. I mean, like the Circle K out there on Hunt Highway, Merrill Ranch Parkway. You reviewed the site plan, the building elevations,
Color schemes, all that.
color
good-
schemes,
yep.
yes.
Color scheme, signage.
Well,
They'll
I'm
have drainage.
thinking of it, something for you guys to note in the back of your head. I don't know why, I must wear a collar or something, but they've left that car wash standing. And although they canceled the lease on it, it was a car wash that
Right.
they were leasing out. Jim Allen was running it.
Yep.
And now it's turned into a traffic going through the car washes has turned into an entrance into the Circle K.
Yeah, we're looking into what we can do about that because it's been abandoned, it's kind of an eyesore now.
It's another dead dinosaur thanks to Circle K.
Yeah,
And so either take it down or put it back in service, one or the other.
Right.
But that's not an entrance to Circle K. I prefer they put it back in service. The only thing we had that we could wash a pickup truck with.
Yeah. But something that we have also in the design review process that's in the code is the administrative design review, and that's where staff only takes a look at it. It does not come to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So this is if someone builds a single-family home or has a plot where it's 2 homes on it, they're just producing a home. We take the initiative to review it, make sure it meets all our requirements from the town. But plans are exempt when it comes to planned unit development. Those have to go through your design review that come to the commission. Comprehensive sign plans, anything that happens there needs to come planning commission. And any design review that happens for the historic district needs to go through the HDAC. Some other things that go through design review are some basic landscaping, parks and fields, except for giant commercial recreation facilities that needs to come through planning zone. Some others are projects less than an acre or involving less than 10,000 square feet. And if we disapprove, the staff disapproves something administratively, the owner can take it to the Planning and Zoning Commission to appeal that decision.
So, Mari, is this where a developer would bring amenities that are part of a development, the tot lots, the pocket parks, that type of thing, and that those would get an administrative review versus us ever seeing them?
If they plan to do a pocket park with, say, a little ramada, then that would come through the administrative review.
And I think that's something that we
Yeah, we had this discussion previously, though, as these come through in the future, we can bring them to you to look at, but those are usually things that have been stipulated as part of the PUD and the master plan, I guess, for the entire community. And, not every retention area, for example, has playground equipment in it or ramadas or whatever. They're all a little bit different.
and I'm just speaking for myself, I don't think that I need to know the magnitude and the type of playground equipment, but it would be nice as we look at some of these preliminary plats to know that, hey, in this retention basin / park, there will be equipment so that we can kind of get a perspective of where the developer is putting them so that we can say, hey, there's a lot over here, but it's quite a walk from these people. Why aren't you putting some over here? Just to give us some perspective like that and where the trails are going to be and things like that as we look at preliminary plats. I think that would be beneficial to get a perspective as to what is being proposed.
Now, we can bring that up with Jared and the Pulte group next time we meet with them, which is 2 weeks.
And I'm not just those guys, but just, any preliminary plat that comes
Right.
through, I think would
But
be
they're the ones that are active
helpful.
right
Yeah,
now.
be helpful for us just to see what's going on.
It really comes down to the definition of a preliminary plat.
Now, that is typically not part of the preliminary plat, but I don't think that they would have any adverse reaction to pointing that out for us.
That is something we can encourage.
We need to do a whole separate session on preliminary and final plats. That is not part of tonight, because that can get to be a rather detailed discussion.
Yeah, it can.
Let me ask one more quick question. I know we have standards for architectural looks of the front side of homes, so you can't have 2 beside each other or across from each other, and there has to be some variety. Do we have the same standards for the rear of homes that are along a roadway?
We have been looking at 4-sided architecture, is what we refer to it as. We want to see at least pop-outs or relief around windows and things like that on the rear and the sides.
And I'm just thinking, I've seen some developments when you drive down the back of them, you drive to the front and they look really nice. There's variety. There's a lot. Drive down to the back and it's just the exact same thing from the road, and it's
Right.
kind of not very aesthetically.
Yeah,
We do-
our-
we try to do all these nice road landscaping and whatnot and be aesthetic, and it's just like a row of ugly.
Yeah, and our code isn't specific enough, unfortunately, in that area. But we've been bluffing our way through it because most communities require four-sided architecture. So usually when we get a standard plans, it already has it. So you see that pretty much throughout Merrill Ranch, that it's not too bad. At least you get some pop-outs or relief around the windows and things of that nature on the rear. Anything you can see, from the street.
And that group isn't, the Merrill Ranch isn't really the one that I'm seeing. It's as I drive around in other areas that are developing, and I see that and think, boy, that's just all this effort to make it look nice, then you see this long row of the
Yeah.
exact same thing.
So when it comes to PUDs for design review, based on these requirements, the projects that include new or modified vertical development or construction components, including permanent signs that require a new building permit, these need to go design review. Projects including new or modified horizontal project components, outdoor storage areas, driveways, circulation, landscape, those come through design reviews. And grading and civil improvement plans, unless determined by the director, do not come through the design review project, as most of these are found in the preliminary plat. Correct?
Say that again?
Most of your grading and drainage kind of.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, those things are all handled through before the final plat is even processed. Those things have to be designed and approved by the town engineer when you get into grading and drainage and civils.
And then any interior remodels or tenant improvements do not come through design review. Anything interior does not come through the design review process. But if it's an exterior for a historic home, that does go through HDAC. And this is the typical design review process for when it comes through, well, either administrative or through Planning and Zoning Commission. It just depends on what they submit to us. So we go through maybe a pre-application meeting, formal submittals, we review those submittals and decide whether it's just something we can do administratively or it needs to go to Planning and Zoning Commission. And from there, they're denied or approved. And once that's done, they go to building permits, if approved. Moving on to rezonings. Rezonings are regulations set forth in the development code and boundaries of zoning districts established by the town. This is the process that helps to amend or supplement them or modify when necessary. And this is to best serve the public's interest, the town's general plan, or the public health, comfort, and convenience, as well as general welfare. Requests for amendments or rezoning shall be considered by the Planning and Zoning Commission for the purpose of making a recommendation to the mayor and council. And this is our typical process that is found in our rezoning application. Pre-application meeting, a neighborhood meeting needs to occur based on state statute, but it can happen before the formal submittal or after. But it does need to happen, a neighborhood meeting, and that's usually completed by the applicant. Well, staff will review that formal submittal and make adjustments, and then take it forward to do public notices and public hearings. We go to Planning and Zoning Commission for the hearing and for review. Then we take it to Town Council, and that's where it is approved or denied.
Variant.
Now, variances are different from your typical process. Is to request a deviance from our current zoning requirements, and if granted, It permits the owner to use the land in a manner that is not otherwise permitted by our development code. It is not a change to our zoning law, so we're not amending the law unless this is something that needs to be changed because it's reoccurring. It's reoccurring so often that staff recognizes that a full amendment needs to be made.
Maybe a point of just clarification on that, two things. Number one, the variances don't come to the Planning Commission, but you need to be aware of what they are. That's why we have it on this presentation.
Exactly.
And second, what it means is when it says not a change in the zoning law, is that somebody cannot say, well, I want to put left-handed widget store in a residential zone, and I'm going to go get a variance to do that. No, that is a land use zoning decision that is not eligible for a variance. So land use themselves is not eligible for a variance per statute.
And as Larry says often, they can always apply for a variance. That does not mean they get it. But a variance is approved or denied by the Board of Adjustment, which in the town is the town council. They adjourn from their town council meeting and they become the Board of Adjustment. They complete the variance or the application, and then they stop being the Board of Adjustment and they go back to being town council.
And a good example of that was not too long ago, well, it's been how long ago? It's been almost 3 years now.
Yes.
We did it for Burger King when they did their major remodeling down there. They wanted a digital reader board. Well, we hadn't amended the zoning code yet to allow for that, but they were at a disadvantage because through 3 different methods, the Circle K downtown, the Taco Bell, the McDonald's out on 79, all had digital reader boards. So Burger King was at a competitive disadvantage that some other use within the same zoning classification was granted something that they were not allowed to have. So that qualifies for a variance.
Right.
But we did since amend the code, so they would have been allowed outright, but timing-wise, that didn't work out. So that was a nice, clean one. That's a good example of what a variance is for. In other words, it wasn't a hardship that they imposed. It was posed because of the circumstances surrounding them.
And
Building a
that's-
3-car garage and starting automotive repair and residential, that would not be a variance.
No,
Okay.
not sure that would qualify as a home occupation either.
That's not a cottage industry, no.
So jumping off of that, variances do require that findings to approve it need to happen and need to be approved by, shown to the board. So some sufficient evidence is that there needs to be special circumstances or conditioning applying to that land. The land is shaped weird, it's in the rear, it doesn't have access, something like that.
Yeah.
And they don't apply to other properties. And other special circumstances are not created by the owner or the applicant, and that one is one of the main. A lot of people want to do something, but that's just a hardship they're creating themselves. Another is the circumstance is not typical enough that a general code amendment is needed, and that's what I stated before. It's reoccurring so much that an amendment just needs to outright happen. And it is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of a substantial property right. And then another is the variance will not be materially detrimental to persons residing or working in the vicinity around that lot or wherever that variance is going to take place. And just, it will not harm the public welfare in general.
As Mari pointed out, this is quasi-judicial, and so what that means is not only does the council have to adjourn as council and convene as the Board of Adjustment, but it's actually a swearing in of witnesses. Anybody that's going to testify has to be sworn in, the standard, on the Bible type swearing in. It is basically treated as a type of a court of law, which also means should that decision be appealed, it's appealed directly to Superior Court.
And they don't have subpoena power.
Pardon me?
They do not have subpoena power.
I'm not hearing you.
The Board of Adjustment does not have subpoena power.
No. You're correct. But, it's like any decision of the council or the Board of Adjustment, can be appealed to court.
And this is the standard process we have in the variance application as well. We do a pre-application meeting, formal submittal, staff reviews, and then we do any resubmits if changes are necessary, and then we take it to the Board of Adjustments. State statute does require that we do public notices and postings. And then from there, it is denied or approved, and then we can go to building permits if that's what it's asking for.
Yeah, typically variance applications are rare. You know, you have to have something really unusual. For example, I can't think of any really good ones. Let's say you had an equestrian subdivision, and part of that equestrian subdivision, a couple of the lots had a major wash going through it, so they were going to have difficulty meeting certain setbacks, because setbacks on those larger lots are larger than they would be on just an R16 property. So that wash would be special circumstances associated with that lot that would prevent them from having the same benefit that all the other lots around them would have. And so variance would be, you know, a logical solution to that. Also, like Mari said, if you have a lot of variances on a particular issue, you need to look at your code. Maybe there's some flaw in the code that's preventing people from enjoying their property that variance is being applied for. That being said, we've had one. It was the sign. That's the only one we've had since I've been here.
I was lucky enough to have one in my tenure here. At the very beginning, too.
Yeah, they're very rare. If your code is halfway decent, variance requests are very rare.
With that, if there are any questions, we can start that discussion now.
Thank you. I thought this was really helpful to me. If you would, could you send us the PDF? Because some of these charts I'd like to be able to see larger.
Yes, I can send everyone the PowerPoint application,
Thanks.
especially Commissioner Prowse since he is not here.
And all of those flow charts are also on our website.
Oh, okay.
If you go into departments, community development, planning applications, is that the click on? And it gives you the application for all these different things, and the majority of them have the flow charts inside. That's where Mari clipped them from. But we can also send you the PDF
That's
of
fine.
the PowerPoint, because then you have it at that scale rather than 3 on a page.
I think that would be beneficial, and I think Commissioner Pro would like that as well.
And we'll offer him the opportunity to come in and meet with us at staff level to go over the same presentation.
Mari, that was great. Real effort. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Very well done, and I can tell how much you don't like standing there. So,
My feet are getting a little tired.
no, admirable job.
And just as a compliment to Mari, she prepared this all on her own, and I reviewed it yesterday, and I made, 3.5 minutes worth of tweaks, and
He made a lot of changes, but I also,
she did the journeyman's work on this one.
I do want to thank Chairman Pronzo for helping to send
I didn't do
guiding
anything.
questions.
I just, I gave you a place to look. I didn't do any work.
He gave me a place to start,
Well,
but thank you.
great big thank you.
Yes.
Can we have a round of applause? This is the part where you turn red.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm about ready to faint anyway.
I'm going to bring us back into session. And we'll do presentation information only on the general plan. Who gets to do that one?
A week from today, at 1:30 and at 5:30, there will be community meetings at the community center. Public's invited. It's been posted on our social media sites. It's been posted out front, and it's on our website too, isn't it? It's supposed to be. We'll double check that. The consultant will be here. We're going to start looking at land use recommendations. Of particular note for you guys is that we have significantly altered the land use designations from what we're showing on the current 2020 general plan. Our general plan currently reads like a zoning ordinance. It gets very use specific, and that's not what a general plan's supposed to be. It's supposed to be the document that guides the development of a zoning ordinance, or a development code in our case. And that'll be one of the things that we're going to be stressing at that meeting, and how the general plan is used to show a concept for an area, but the individual parcels and zoning would be looked at individually as the uses are proposed.
What's the date of this?
It's the 22nd. a week
July
from today.
22nd.
So I took the posting off of Facebook and I had 2:00.
Yeah, the room, it is 2 to 4. The room is saved from 1:30 to 4:30.
Yeah,
So that's
sorry.
why we say 1:30, because
Yeah,
we'll
it's
be
a
there.
2-hour meeting. Come early, that's fine. The consultant will be there, they'll be setting up boards, and we'll be doing it, and they're going to do it in such a way that it is limitedly interactive on Facebook. I don't know, I don't understand the technology, so I'm not going to go into details, but our PIO, Ben Bitter, has been involved with our consultant to get this set up. We'll also be recording it, it's my understanding, so that it's something that we can post and can be replayed if somebody wanted to watch it. There will be 2 of them that day. There will also be additional. This is not a one and done. There'll be several meetings on especially the land use component, because that's the part of a general plan that most people understand and are concerned or interested in. So we'll be, this is kind of our rollout. So, we may be, as we do future meetings, they may handle it a little different or whatever. This is kind of our test case to make sure we're handling it. But there's been a lot of work done up front. I think you'll see that at the meeting if you can attend one or both. We hope that both meetings are going to be substantially the same. We're not looking for any different presentations or whatever, so you can attend one or the other.
How much impact has all of these approved PUDs had on?
They will have a
formulating-
significant impact on the plan based on our current town limits. But the planning area is significantly larger than our town limits, and we're actually going to be recommending a change in those planning area also. And reducing it from the top, because we go way north and Queen Creek's already started annexing within our planning area.
Yeah,
So we're calling that back about 2 miles, but we're also looking at extending it to the south. Maybe down as far as the monastery. So
that's pretty far.
well,
And
it's another 3 miles.
I do want to clarify for those listening that the planning area does not mean that we're immediately annexing you.
No.
It's just the planning area shows where we want to grow out to.
Where we might be. State statute basically requires that we define a planning area where the town could grow someday. But no, there's no active annexations going on or anything like that, nor would we initiate them, because you have to have property owner cooperation to do an annexation. You just can't go out and arbitrarily annex property because the town wants to. You have to have significant property owner cooperation as far as numbers of parcels and assessed value. So,
See, and I was hoping for just some flag planting. This is ours now.
well, you can try
I
that.
claim this in the name of Florence. Would it be possible, I'm sorry, can you email us about that meeting, just so we'd have it, just a reminder, just say, hey, by the by, unless it's a big bother. If it is, don't worry about it.
Maury, can you?
I can send an email out along with this PowerPoint.
Thank you.
South of the town, even though it's in our general plan, a developer could go to Coolidge and ask to be annexed into Coolidge as a part of his master plan.
Right now, our planning areas, they don't really collide anywhere except a little bit south of 287, around,
Is there
what
airport?
road is that? Around Valley Farms? No,
Yeah.
we're not out there. I don't think we're even out that far. Probably at Adamsville. I think ours, we stop kind of right around Adamsville Road. So.
We do.
In other words, they have their airport.
Right.
That's in their planning area in the town. So I see very little conflict potential down there. But yes, a property owner could be, if they're contiguous and meet all the state requirements, they could ask to be annexed into a different community. That's what's going on up with Queen Creek and the northern end of our planning area.
Okay. Is that it on the general plan?
For right now, yes, sir.
Okay, moving on, future agenda items.
We do have 2 design review cases coming forward soon. The Pinal County is looking to do a new public defender building and a new medical examiner building off of Diver. The public defender will be on the Jason Lopez Circle. The medical examiner building will be off of Diversion Dam Road, and the other road escapes me, but it's not part of that Lopez Circle.
Do they ever exhibit any interest in all this vacant land that we have sitting over here?
Apparently, they like to keep it close.
Which vacant land?
The land
You go
north,
out to the parking lot and look that way. It's all vacant.
our north framework.
What do we call that?
Oh, you mean the north end, the
Territory
Territory
Square.
Square stuff?
Yeah,
Well, that's town property, not the county's, number one. Number two, most of that's still in the floodplain and currently unbuildable until we go through the full LOMAR process.
there's a lot of people here in Pinell County. Of course, I don't really see it because I live here in Florence, so seeing the prisons is no big deal to me. But there's a lot of people here, they look at that and say, boy, we spent all this money to put up a county building and we used the prisons as a backdrop. It's
Yeah.
kind of a funny thing, you know, it's not a good way to represent the public. All right, so we got those two things coming up,
They are coming up when staff is done with their review.
design reviews,
Those will be design reviews.
okay.
Coming up as in next meeting or sometime in the future?
Sometime in the future, not next meeting.
Okay, so I'll close that, call to the public. We're not on Zoom anymore, right?
No, we are not.
Okay, so we have no public, I'll close that. Call to the commission, current events only. The silence is deafening. All right, I'll call that, and can I have a motion for adjournment?
I will make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Capolongo, second by Commissioner Adam. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We are adjourned.